social finance, which is the organization that I lead, come to this work from the point of view of an intermediary or a product developer, if you will. Over the last 12 years, we have been squarely in the catalytic space, or, before Deborah and John and colleagues at MacArthur termed catalytic capital, the impact first space of the broader impact investing continuum. We've been pretty much unapologetic about that position. Over the years, when we have developed tools like the social impact bond, more recently, over the last 4 or 5 years, the career impact bond, or a set of workforce finance strategies, broadly speaking, another vehicle to enable dreamers and DACA recipients to have social and economic mobility. I can give some examples later on in the panel. But we've always been squarely in the space where, going back to your 5 Ps and 3 Ss, Fran, really kind of early stage instruments that are completely unproven. In the case of the social impact bond, it's really a tool to try to ignite government spending toward outcomes. And it's definitely deployed both in the horizontal sense, John, as well as the vertical sense. But it's really about how do you inject R&D into the social sector delivery service space so that we can spend our taxpayer resources in a much more outcomes-focused way. That particular tool, although it hasn't really become a hockey stick, and who knows about the fate of the social impact bond movement, continues to give me a lot of hope about how to ignite the policy lever, because at the end of the day, we see amazing interventions on the ground, whether it's, well evidence-based interventions in youth violence, or tackling recidivism, or early childhood, or job training. But it's always a hope that after certain interventions have been proven, typically by philanthropic grant dollars, that the government would pick it up and use a policy lever to really deliver these services at scale for those who need these services. And the social impact bond's theory of change from the beginning was really about using catalytic capital to serve as that bridge to prove it out so that government can pay for success, and then ultimately, to talk about the third S, make it a sustaining source of capital to fund these evidence-based programs by just embedding it in everyday government spending. So through the social impact bond experiment, again, the jury is still out where it is. We see a lot of the purpose and uses of catalytic capital come to the fore. More recently, in our workforce finance strategies, and John would know this, we're so lucky to be in the C3 in the Catalytic Capital Consortium, where we're trying to really disrupt, to Lori's earlier point about systems change, disrupt how we educate and train Americans to land the many great jobs in the country. The systems change aspects include all the players in the workforce development system. It includes employers, it includes training providers, whether it's in the Title IV system or in the nonprofit CBO world, or in even for-profit training providers. It connects workers into the ecosystem, as well as obviously the biggest funder of workforce development, the government. How do you use finance as a set of risk mitigant tools? How do you use finance as a way to realign incentives among these players is really at the root of these workforce finance strategies. And I would also end by saying that whether it's a social impact bond or the career impact bond or the Dreamers education loan fund that we've developed, philanthropy has been really at the front and center of providing catalytic capital. Yes, we also work with family offices and foundations and donor advised funds, but the presence of institutional philanthropy at the table, I think, has been a really important and powerful voice at the table. I don't know who said this, many years ago, that philanthropy remains almost like the conscience of impact investing, because how do we ensure that as we scale, as we really meet the demands of the SDGs, that we stay authentic to the impact, make sure that the impact that we're achieving is measurable and real. And we just could not be more grateful for the presence of institutional philanthropy to kind of hold all of us accountable to why we're doing this in the first place. So an incredibly exciting time for Catalytic Capital. And I might just end on this last point, Fran. I love the timeline framework. I love the taxonomy. I think it's elegant, comprehensive. But I would love to draw attention, for those who work with individuals and families, that one of our board members wrote a blog, Laura Lauder, about her 4 buckets of investing and change making. And it's basically the same framework that you described, Fran. Bucket 1 is traditional investing with no consideration for impact, and your goal is to maximize risk-adjusted returns. Bucket 4 is negative 100% capital, if you will, grant making, donations through philanthropy. And then in between is buckets 2 and 3. Bucket 2 is really risk-adjusted market rate impact investing, but it's typically through investing in companies and enterprises. And then, by the way, you find the impact and values in those investments. And then bucket 3 is what we call impact first investing, where first and foremost, you are pursuing impact, and it may deliver market rate returns, but most of the time it's concessionary because you are pursuing impact so intentionally that you're taking on risks and underwriting risks that you may not be rewarded financially for. So that uncompensated risk dimension really animates the investments in bucket 3. And I think this is really the golden era for bucket 3 investing, in impact first investing in Catalytic Capital. And just really delighted to hear what products and examples all of us are working on these days.